the whole transition, which is a podcast on its own, from the United States to Cape Town, that was a transition in itself. But when moving here, your life took a bit of a turn, and I want you to share a bit about that.
Yeah, we moved into the church house. We were on the church property. We already had our daughter, Kieran, who was 1.5. We moved here. And then we felt like it was time to have another child. God bless us with a son, Keller. And he was like the church's baby. You know, it was that quintessential, like he was everyone's baby. And then at about 1, we started to realize something was different. He wasn't kind of hitting normal markers, which, you know, boys are different. Every kid's different. Yeah. And then we started to think maybe it's like he's defiant, or maybe he's extra sensitive. Maybe he's got sensory issues. Took him to a doctor at 1.5, a pediatric neurologist, and she right there diagnosed us with autism, which was something I didn't even know that word. We left the office and had to Google it. And it felt at that time almost like a death sentence. We had moved to South Africa to do this ministry in the community, and our son couldn't tolerate people being in our house. He couldn't go into the church. But we were just like, how have we been called to this life here? And now we have a son who might never communicate, might never connect with people, isn't able to be a part of our ministry. Sure. Things have to change, but like, how? Why, God? Why?
Welcome to Hot Talks.
What is up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Hot Talks,
where we find,
where we obtain knowledge
in areas
of ignorance. It's so great to be back with you guys once again. It's been quite a second. As you can hear, my mom already forgot the intro. Yeah, it's been a while, but thank you guys for clicking on this video, and we just know that you are going to be blessed.
Amen.
But we're not alone today.
No, we're not.
This setup looks a bit different. It looks very authory, very vintage, very aesthetic. Like, let me just tell you guys, it's so aesthetic. But yeah, we are not alone today. But I'm gonna give my mom the honor and privilege to introduce our guest to you.
So we are honored to have a very, very special guest today with us. She's a pastor, a reverend, a speaker, life coach, community developer, and an author. That's where I met her. She's my co-author, she's my colleague. Her story is one of faith, being tested in ways she's never expected.
Wow.
When her young son was diagnosed with autism, she found herself navigating a journey of uncertainty, heartbreak, and countless questions. Yet through that season, she discovered hope, strength, and a deeper understanding of God's faithfulness. Wow. Today, we'll be diving into her story, the lessons she's learned along the way, and the heart behind her book. Please help me welcome Sarah Collins Prince.
Wow, it's so good to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Do it like that.
Yeah, like that.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Listen, I just want to say something that if I don't want to know what the resume looks like, it's probably like this thick.
Very thick,
file,
probably.
like massive. With
Must
all
be.
I'm sure.
Most important job is just hanging out here at the house with my family.
I love that.
Wow.
Absolutely.
That's our ministry.
Yeah, for sure. It starts here.
But let me just tell you guys, we have been planning this.
Oh my
For the
gosh.
longest
It's been like in the
Oy.
pipeline.
Yikes.
But we believe that God brings all things together for the good of
Divine
those
time.
Yeah.
who love Him. But yeah, can you maybe say hi to the viewers?
Hi.
I love that.
Hi. Did I do that right? Hi.
So obviously the accent sounds a bit
Oof.
different
Not
from
from
us.
us.
South Africa.
Yeah,
No.
definitely not from here.
Mm-mm.
So tell us a bit about yourself,
Yeah.
briefly.
Okay. Hi. Thank you so much for coming all this way. First of many. Let's claim it. Let's speak it into
Amen.
existence.
Jesus' name.
We have lots of things to talk about.
For sure.
I've known that from the beginning. So happy to have you in our home. So I'm Sarah. And yes, those are things about me that you read. Yeah, I think I'm just a person who's called by God to live a strange life. I think as life goes on, and you guys can relate to this, I think, you think 100%. You're normal, and then as life goes on, you're like, this isn't normal. This isn't normal. And you just say yes to what God asks you to say yes to.
Absolutely.
So that's our story. So I'm American. Apologies. Also, if I talk too fast or too loud, just give me the sign.
Subtitles in.
We have been here for 16 years, though. So my husband and I, both American. People always assume someone's South African. I guess the quick story is we were both pastors in the United States. But in my training, my pastoral training, I did a lot of work about race and reconciliation, African spirituality. I just kept getting pulled into these subjects that made me come alive, and I couldn't get enough of it. One of my classes was about the history of South Africa. And so in that class, I just fell in love with this country, and I fell in love with the freedom fighters here, the people who use their lives to claim dignity for other humans. And so that just kind of set the stage, but then we just went to work in a church, and it was just a normal white people church in the suburbs of Raleigh, North Carolina. And I just was drowning all the time. I couldn't figure out why I was so unhappy. Finally, in 2007, I went to Uganda, and we would go to Mexico, Jamaica, Ecuador. We'd go all the time to all these places. And that was my favorite, when I was around a culture that wasn't my own. Because even my background's, my mom's Mexican. So my mom is Mexican from East LA. So my favorite times growing up would when we'd go to my Mexican family in California. So I just had this pull, went to Uganda, came home and quit my job with my pastor. My head pastor said, well, I just heard about this nonprofit that's in Cape Town. You guys should go. And so my husband took a sabbatical. He was a youth pastor, and I quit, and we came here for 3 months. And that's when God just opened the doors and put this calling on our lives to come and move here and start our nonprofit, which is a football academy, Ubuntu Football. And that's a whole nother podcast, which we must have.
That's
But part of it was also this kind of question and wrestling of what would it look like to live within the community that we were serving. So rather than kind of coming in from the outside, and I've studied a lot. I do like books. I'm a big nerd. But what if we came within the community we serve, because there's so much we don't know. There's more we don't know than we know. And so then God opened an opportunity where we could live 2 streets down on the Methodist church property. And I worked with the Methodist church for the first 6 years we were here. And we lived on the church property. And that's where our story here began, was living in this community. Then we bought this house about 7 years ago, and been here ever since. So Americans living in Cape Town.
And allow me to say, when our drive here, when she says that she lives in the community,
She lives in the community.
she literally lives in the community. I think maybe
Definitely,
as part of this podcast on our way out, maybe we can just do like a thumbnail just to
Show my hood.
100%.
I love that, because sometimes
Literally a hood.
we'll be called to a place, and then we live outside the place.
Of course, yeah. I mean, because you have good intentions. You think, I don't want to assume that they want me there. What if, and you also have fears. What if it's dangerous? What if they don't accept me? Which
100%.
all of those things happened, of course. But the idea was, people have things to tell us, and people have things to teach us. And you can really only learn those things if you're living among them. And we'd had people that we'd watch do this kind of work and live among those communities. And so we didn't know if it would work, but it's home for sure.
It worked.
It
feels
works.
like
It
home.
worked.
It
It
definitely
worked.
feels like
I
home.
know.
We thank God for sending them, and we thank you for coming to our beautiful country.
So obviously, the whole transition, which is a podcast on its own, the whole transition
Definitely must
from
record.
We should talk about it.
the United States to Cape Town, that was a transition in itself of uncertainty. What is God wanting us to do here? But when God gives you a word, you can't really. You can't run away from it, man. It pulls you. It pulls onto you, and I feel like we can relate so much to that.
Definitely.
For sure.
But when moving here, your life took a bit of a turn, and I want you to share a bit about that.
Yes. So, we moved into the church house. We were on the church property. We already had our daughter, Kieran, who was 1.5. We moved here. And she was just like the happiest, easiest child. She would just have this huge belly, and she would just toddle around. Everyone loved her. She was like a bridge builder. Her middle name's Joy, and she was just, Joy. So she went everywhere with us. Every ministry thing we did, she was there. And then we felt like it was time to have another child. God blessed us with a son, Keller. And he was like the church's baby. It was that quintessential, like he was everyone's baby. He would be passed around at Bible study. He'd be passed around at church. He was beloved. And so we just were like, okay, we're ready. We're starting our nonprofit, which is all to uplift young boys. At that point, it was boys, and now it's girls also, but it was to uplift young boys using football, using elite football, and kind of holistically bring them up. And so we had our own son, we had our own family, and we were doing this ministry. And then at about 1, we started to realize something was different. He wasn't kind of hitting normal markers, which, boys are different, every kid's different.
Yes.
And then we started to think maybe it's like he's defiant, or maybe he's extra sensitive, maybe he's got sensory issues. Took him to a doctor at 1.5, a pediatric neurologist, and she right there their diagnosis with autism, which was something I didn't even know that word. I didn't know what it was. Now I feel like it's so much more like in the zeitgeist. Like people, it's very common to talk about it.
Yeah.
We literally didn't know what it was. We left the office and had to Google it. And it felt at that time almost like a death sentence. It sounds so dramatic now because there's lots of kids and adults that live their whole lives with autism and have beautiful lives. If you have more severe autism, then you get assistance. It's totally known in this world. But for us, we had moved to South Africa to do this ministry in the community. So we were doing ministry in our house. We were starting a nonprofit. Literally, the office was in our house, and our son couldn't tolerate people being in our house. He couldn't go into the church. He couldn't go to the soccer field. He wasn't communicating, which, as you can tell, we like to do.
Yes.
So it was like,
It's American thing.
yeah, we do it a lot. So, but we were just like, how have we been called to this life here? And now we have a son who might never communicate, might never connect with people, isn't able to be a part of our ministry. Sure. Things have to change, but like, how? Why, God? Why?
Yes. Wow. Sure, that's intense. And I'm thinking as a mom, you want to protect. When you see, not that your child is different, but there's a difference.
Yeah.
As a mom, how did you manage that with understanding what God had said, what God has instructed, but also still being a mom? How did you navigate that to fulfill God's plan, but still to be a mom?
Yeah, it was really hard. And I think what's different about me is that I always felt called, well, since I was probably 16, felt called to ministry. I didn't always feel called to be a mom. Okay. I felt called to be with kids. We did youth ministry for years, and we would literally, we would do these trips where it would be like 100 kids, teenagers, we'd take to camp or take to Mexico. So I always loved discipling. I always loved teenagers, but I didn't feel called to be a mother. And I think part of it was just fear of like, as you get older, and in my 20s, I started doing therapy and I started working through my own pains. And I was like, oh gosh, do we bring in another kid to this mess? And then God, laid it on our hearts that we did want to have kids. And my husband's great with kids. And so I always knew he'd be a great dad. And as a mother, it was like, I'll learn, hopefully. But I loved being a mom to Kieran. She was an easy kid. She's always made it easy and fun to be a mom. And so then I think at the appointment, you're getting this diagnosis and it's like almost like Charlie Brown, where it's like, like you can't start to hear words. Yes. But I kind of interrupted and I said, well, what am I supposed to do if I take him to like the store and he's like having a meltdown? What do I say? And she said, you tell people he's autism. And I was like, what? Because actually I just couldn't. At that point, I couldn't figure out how this diagnosis was going to fit into my life. Yes. Really. Yes. It was like, we have a calling, we have a purpose, and how does this thing fit into us? And so God really had to change my heart to help to see that this was perfectly planned in our calling. It was part of our calling. It wasn't this outside thing that was a challenge to our calling. Yes. It was an important part of the tapestry of our calling. It was exactly who we were supposed to be. Because I didn't think I was, I'm living in Ocean View. I love people. I love people of all shapes and sizes, but people with special needs, that was something I had a lot of almost fear about. It was like, I was just like, I don't know how to talk to people with disabilities. I don't know how to do that. Like, I can go talk to the drug addict and his grandma and go to a funeral and marry someone, but talking to someone with special needs, that was really outside of my comfort zone. For sure. So it had to come inside for God to change my heart on it. And so the thing, and you mentioned this, you said about what God said. So God, when I was becoming a mother, it wasn't like God was saying things. It was just a heart change. But when I came to God in grief of like, this is what we have, God, how could you? What am I supposed to do? He started to speak to me. And he said, I will do a miracle in Keller's life in Ocean View. Because part of our life is we have a nonprofit we raise money for, but then we also raise money for our own salaries as like missionaries from our churches sent us. And then all these churches support us. So these churches started getting really vocal about, well, you need to come back to America. Sure. We are like the Center for Autism Research. And obviously you have to bring your son back to America. So people were really vocal about what to do, and they directly pay like our salary. And so I had to really get through my grief of like, okay, God, Keller is fearfully and wonderfully made. This is exactly who you want in our family and for this time and in our life and our ministry. And then I had to listen to what God was saying about Keller. And he said, I will do a miracle in Keller's life in Ocean View. And so then I had to go to these people who are our givers, but also our friends, and say, God has said we are supposed to be here, and this is where He wants to tell this story. And that was challenging. It was really, really challenging, and our support system hadn't really been built fully here. But God knew exactly what we needed. He knew who we needed, and so we just kind of started to walk and started to learn. And I think, like you guys too, once it clicked that this is perfectly our calling, perfectly the right time, perfectly supposed to be in our lives, I just like clicked and turned on to like nerd mode, as you see behind me. And I just was like, okay, what I need to know everything. I need to know everything about this. I need to meet every person, every mother. And God, from the very beginning, started to bring people in our lives who wanted to partner with us, who said, yes, I'm with you, and let's do this.
Just a thought, and this is a side note quickly, that we need to do a podcast from a dad's perspective.
Yes.
Must.
Because we know that the mothers are the core, they are the center, and they bring everything together.
The nurturers.
The nurturers, because they look after most of the time.
Yeah.
But I'd love to get a
Definitely.
dad's perspective on that. But that's just a side note. So
But I love how you touched a bit on the support system. And that's actually one thing we wanted to know. When it comes to church, so obviously you are ministering family, so that could have maybe have been something that the diagnosis could have been something that could have restricted you a bit. So did you get support from the local church? Obviously with kids on the spectrum, you get different levels of spectrum. So some of them make sound, so it can be very disruptive. So as an example, in the church, did you have people giving you side eyes? And how did you deal with that?
Yeah, it was a very unique situation because I'm one of the pastors. So literally a month after the diagnosis, I'm at the pulpit preaching, saying this is the diagnosis, choking up. And from the beginning, most of the people, their response was, well, this is our child. Wow. Okay. And I say that to say it was an unfair privilege because we were the pastors. People just were like, okay, well, then we're going to support you. Wow. So that actually was an unfair privilege. It was a beautiful privilege. I'm thankful for it. But most people don't have that, right? So I got to go to the front and say, my son was diagnosed with autism. He's fearfully and wonderfully made. And people said, okay, we're going to help you. And I think often it's people who get this diagnosis that are in the back row, whose kids already have been disruptive, 100%. Who are always already feeling scared, who are already getting side eyes and kind of like nervous. The other thing was that Keller couldn't go into church. So before he got the diagnosis, we would have to have someone else sit with him. And it was on the same, again, privilege. Our church is on the property of our house. So someone had to stay with him during church, and we would take turns, and we would just walk over and go in and out. That's a privilege. Yes. And so it was just like he can't handle it. So we had a kids Sundays, either in our church, it was either you hold them or they go to a kids Sunday school. So he couldn't do either of those. So it was just like how it was. So people just kind of accepted it, but it's because we got to kind of decide or create the culture, which was beautiful for us, but unfair for other families. For sure. So people accepted him, and people accepted that we needed to make different kind of parameters for what he needed, and they were just okay with that. But I think probably behind the scenes, there was a lot of people talking, a lot of questions. And, people now, because the story is he's lost his diagnosis, are like, well, maybe he didn't have autism. He did. He had every symptom. He was very disruptive, and he would just throw temper tantrums. You couldn't have brought him in the door. It wasn't like you could bring him in and then he would start to make sounds. He would just scream the entire way in. Wow. So you couldn't bring him in. So that it was just what it was. He would not go anywhere he didn't want to go. And he would, flap his hands, and he would make he was very vocal, but just not words. Okay. So he was very disruptive anywhere he was. But the privilege of our lives was that people just said, okay, well, we love you. We love Keller. Just a few families just said, great, we love him. Can he come to our house? The people would get mad. I want to babysit him again, because people would babysit Kieran. And then when he was young, they would babysit, and they're like, well, why can't we want time with him. We want to connect with him. And so people almost fought to be in Keller's life. And that's very unique. So we have a very different perspective. Yeah. And I think that's how the church should be with everyone. For sure. Everyone should have that privilege of someone saying, oh, this is hard. What can I do?
Sorry to break you with. This podcast just took a whole completely different perspective, because we wanted to, the idea was to hear her story and how she dealt with it. But right now we are getting information on how we that doesn't have the autistic child at home.
How
Can
we
give
support.
support.
How we should support.
Yes.
Let me look after him.
And I'm thinking about like the ones that's not
Or
as
her.
privileged as like you said.
Yeah.
Parents that has autistic children or children on the spectrum will naturally not come to church.
No, you just don't go. No,
So then they just don't come to church.
1,000% you do
And
not
then they
go.
disconnect from the gathering,
That's-
which is the very core of what God had placed in your life in order to help you through your
Yep.
journey. And I'm
Yep.
thinking, when I'm so encouraged as I'm sitting here listening, because I know your testimony, is that where God sends you, He provides. So where He sent you here, He had already provided
He
what
had.
you didn't even know you needed provision
He
in.
had. He had.
And that was so powerful
Yeah.
that I took out of what you said.
So when I was in the States, I was reflecting on this. So we did a chunk of ministry in the States.
Yeah.
And my mentor, the main pastor at our church, we watched and witnessed his kind of whole life fall apart. And I think it really impacted me more than I realized. And I was reflecting on it recently because when we moved here, I was very aware that whatever we were building in our ministry, it came like way down the list to our family.
Yeah.
And like the peace and the harmony that our family, like that was our first calling together.
Yes.
And so that's always been, and God allowed me to go through that of being very close. Casey he was working in the same church, but it was like youth ministry is like a side thing. It was a really big church, but I was front and center because I was one of the pastors. And so we actually were there having to discern if this pastor could continue. And we had to say he can't with the elders. And I think it impacted me so much that when we moved here, I just knew it's a no, it's like a feeling, you know, when you go through something traumatic, like you can't go back, like you can never take away that feeling. So I just knew I had to be the one to fight for our family and the health of our family. So that was the other thing is I was a pastor in a church. We were doing community development and Casey was starting this NGO, but we had to stay a family. We had to stay a family. And so even though we now had special needs in our family, it was like, well, we have to figure this out and have harmony. And so Casey and I always fought to connect with each other, to have a healthy relationship. And there was tension because we're the two most toughest, opinionated people in the whole world are very different. So like it's a lot of talking and working stuff out to be on the same page, but there's no other way. Like
100%.
what is all this stuff if we don't have harmony in our home? And you guys, you know, being in ministry, you see that over and over and over again, where it's like, it doesn't matter what someone builds. If the house isn't right, and none of it matters.
Nothing matters, yeah.
None of it matters.
That's not in unity, can't stand.
It can't. And so that was, so I was able to choose, and that was a privilege because we're missionaries, because we're missionaries and our salaries coming from outside, I could pull back from all the ministry I was doing and make sure that Keller had what he needed as a caregiver, but also make sure that our family was okay. Because the other thing is that we had this 5-6-year-old daughter who also had a lot of needs
100%.
and
Sure.
need attention. So
100%.
for the marriage, I think we trust each other to listen when God says a word to the other.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, we know that what's most important is the harmony between us. But it was a lot of strain. It was a lot of work. It was like a lot of
Yes.
hours. And we just kind of, you just do it. And as time went on, we started to see Keller hit milestones. So that I think was a natural part of our families. We love to celebrate. We love to like be happy. And so with autism, every kind of milestone you do hit, you celebrate. And therapists do that too. They kind of teach you. So that's kind of becomes a part of our families. Now, every little thing Keller does, if he has shoes on for 10 seconds, if he eats a new food, if he says one word, every single thing we would celebrate
love
as a
that,
family.
yeah.
We were all involved. And so it wasn't like we were all involved trying to take away this diagnosis. We were just trying to help Keller be the person God wanted him to be.
100%.
That was our job as a family.
You know, I'm thinking about the community, because I in your testimony I heard before, your community called a party with a cake to celebrate that you're not okay and you can be okay with not being okay.
Yep.
Give me a little bit more of that.
Yeah, it was a group of girlfriends, which thank God for the girlfriends. They literally invited me over. We would have like gatherings, and these were all like expat people that were involved in ministry. They invited me over one night and I said, we're getting together. And I came there and they had a cake that said hard things. That was the candles. And they said, we are with you. And we will do hard things together. And it just so happened, two of those women that once we put the party together, I'd gone to the gym right after the diagnosis. And I was like, I just got this diagnosis. We're crying in the gym. And so they took it upon themselves to say, we're with you. And this is the hardest thing you face, but we're going to do it together. And they literally threw a party to say, we're in your corner. And so that was my friendship. And I think that's the thing, is you have your church community that you're in life with. And I was like one of the heads of the church community, but then you also just have your friends that you need to like like scream and cry and be mad about and also be happy, and they came in also and just said, we are with you. And we had certain families that just chose us and just chose to be with us. They chose to go to dinner with us, even though, Keller would make everything crazy. They chose to, have times with us where it wasn't a problem that Keller was there. They chose him. Wow. And that was really, it taught me a lot. Yeah. I didn't ever do that for someone else. And so now that's why I love talking about this, because God changed my life to where part of my ministry is now to teach people how to create this kind of community. I didn't know how to do it. Yeah. They did it for me. Wow. The church did it for me. I was the leader of the church, but they opened up for us. And then our friends opened up for us. And so I now love teaching people about that, because it was a gift to me that I didn't know what I needed. You don't know what you need. So that's the other thing is sometimes people don't disclose this diagnosis because you have no idea what you need.
100%.
You don't know what you need. You're just overwhelmed. You're shocked. You're embarrassed for some reason. You feel ashamed. You feel, what if I did something wrong? You feel my dreams for my child. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah. You have these dreams that are now you think are crushed.
For sure. Yeah. And I think the uniqueness of autism is that every situation is different. The little bit I know of
perfectly
it is
said
that it's every single situation is unique.
Exactly.
Wow. So we can't, like any other diagnosis, when you have diabetes or when you have hypertension, this is what you do, exercise,
1,000%.
Blah, blah, and this will then better.
Thank you for saying that.
So now what we do is we get something that we have absolutely no clue, and no one outside knows.
No one knows. There's no blueprint. There's no book. What Keller needed was only what Keller needed. But what people showed us was they were just like, well, we like Keller, and they just chose Keller. And what does Keller need? Yes. And how do we support Keller? Yes. And they investigated Keller. Now there are signs and symptoms and things you can learn. But if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism. Yes. And what people did is just enjoy Keller too. They just liked him. It wasn't like, okay, we're going to have Keller over. This is really hard. They were like, oh, who cares about Kieran? Because Kieran's our kid who, as the years have gone on, she's literally at Artscape. She's singing, dancing, acting. She's gets all the good grades. She's like the impressive one. People would be like, yeah, we choose Keller. He's our favorite. He's the one we like. They would delight in Keller. And isn't that the character of God? Yeah. Isn't that the and that 100%. So they showed me that, because I was like scared. We had this kid who can't do, because that's what you think, this kid can't do this. They were like, oh no, Keller did the funniest thing. Keller said the funniest thing. Keller, look at what Keller does that's so unique. And they taught me to enjoy autism.
Yes. Wow.
Because the end of the story is when he lost his diagnosis, I actually grieved because now I'm not in this community. I did, because the community of people, when you have severe autism, it is hard to live life. It's hard to have a job, to finish school. Like, that is difficult. So that's different than what Keller had. Keller basically developed from moderate autism to a very kind of light autism to then losing his diagnosis, which it does happen. Kids that are diagnosed really early, because your neural pathways in your brain are changing so much. What happened was his neural pathways in his brain changed scientifically because of the repetition of therapies. Yes. He changed over the repetition of, you can put shoes on, you can eat chicken, you can say words, you can tolerate going to the grocery store. That changed his brain. And so that's the scientific side. Also, God provided every therapy, every therapist, every friend. Yes. He provided this unique community, and God did what God does. And Keller, he made Keller's brain to be capable of changing. Yes. So not all people with autism can do that. Yeah. But I think what people taught me is to just enjoy the uniqueness of autism. And now what's funny is, and the other part of the story is, I've now been diagnosed with ADHD. My daughter has been diagnosed with ADHD, and my son lost the autism diagnosis and now has an ADHD diagnosis. Sure. And our world is a lot of people that are neurodivergent, autistic or ADHD or a mix of that. And those are 100%. Our favorite people. That's because true. They're different.
That's true.
I'm Candace's favorite person too.
And he's different in the spectrum.
I can tell. Different. It's the best. It's 100%. The best people. It's the best people in any room. It's the most interesting. It's the world changers, though. We need people in our world who will see things differently.
100%.
Keep coming.
It's true. There's a book called Neurotribes. You should read it, and it's literally about this. It's about how like in tech, it's accepted that you're weird or different, right? It's like coveted, Steve Jobs, and the rest of the world were like, oh, don't be too different. The world needs, God created people that are different so that they can see the world differently, so that they can change the world. Neurotypicals, I mean, we need them. They get us here on time, they set up the cameras. Thank God for you. But it's the neurodivergent that will change the world. So God gave us these people. So this is why I grieved this. And don't worry, my son's still super weird, so it's all's good. But I thank God
Aren't they
over
all?
that process. Aren't they? They're all. But I mean,
Yeah.
my son's really weird. But I think
Mine too.
yeah. But it taught me my community loving and choosing Keller over Kieran at times, who was the very impressive, musical, smart. Like she was like, you could put her on a stage when she was 5.
Yeah.
But they chose Keller.
Yeah.
They delighted in Keller. They
So
had
it
fun
feels
with
like our
Keller.
children, eh? She feels like she's speaking about our children. Really?
It's great. And I think so many parents don't do that
That's true.
in all the stages. And I was that parent. I was scared to have little kids. I was scared to have an autistic kid. I was scared. But teenagers, I do like teenagers. So I knew once they got to be teenagers, I like them.
Yeah.
But I think the problem with parenting any type of kid is that we get scared. Like, just enjoy them.
Wow.
Why are they unique? Why is this time in their lives unique? How can you have fun with them? How can you enjoy them? And that is what our community taught us. I didn't teach them. Sure. They taught me to just enjoy Keller, enjoy this time in our lives. And we did. We had a blast.
Wow.
And I want us to take a turn in as we just end off. So I want to take you back to the moment you first heard that your child had autism. Basis on what you know now, what would you respond to the person who told you?
Okay.
I did go back to her. I mean, I wrote a book about it, and I brought her the book. She was there when I needed someone to tell me. I knew he'd lost the diagnosis, but we went to her again. She's a pediatric neurologist, and she confirmed he'd lost the diagnosis. But I went back to her and brought the book because she was very, and people say she's a very kind of like not harsh, but just like no nonsense. She wasn't like, I'm so sorry. She was like, he has autism, and it was so jarring. But I needed that. I needed someone to just be honest with me. And it was such a gift because we couldn't be like, he's got symptoms, it's possible. It was just like, he's got it. Sure. And we needed that truth because we had a plan for our lives. We believed we knew our calling. And those things were true. Yeah. But God was like, you don't even know what you want. You don't even know what you need. You don't even know what the plans I have for you. And so thank God we were just shocked into it. And then I took Kieran to preschool the next day and said to the preschool teacher, we just got an autism diagnosis yesterday for Keller. And she said, I know. And I was like, oh, what? And she was like,
oh, you knew?
She was like, oh, yeah, I see it. And that's what God gave us then, people who just accepted. And I would say it took me a while. I think the grief was I didn't, you don't know what you don't know. So I'm not mad at that old Sarah, and that she was like prejudiced or whatever.
I love that.
She didn't know.
I didn't know.
I
didn't know. And I don't know lots of things now. And I have lots to learn. We all do. But I think I would say to just be kind to yourself and whatever comes up, whatever grief, whatever anger, whatever confusion, like as a mother, as a person, as a woman or man of God, just be honest with where you're at. You bring it to God. Like he loves that. Like it's so biblical to bring your anger, your confusion, your pain to God because he will direct your path. But he only really can do it when you're honest about where you're at. For sure. So because I was honest with the grief, then I could fully celebrate where we have come now. Because I really met God in where he needed to change my heart.
I think a very strong message is, and I think it's safe to say because the closest I have to an autistic or connection with autism is my little nephew. His name is Eli, and we love him to bits. We love him, but we also understand that our knowledge on this particular subject is extremely limited. So the message that I'm getting is, and I think it's for parents. I think that your for any situation, and I think many people and our listeners would agree, our viewers would agree that when something hits you, the first thing you try and do is try to deny it. And we always have people that speaks to us about this particular, maybe an expert, they will say, like you said, these symptoms, and maybe we must relook at it at 6 months or whatever the case may be. And then we take that and we build little, I don't want to say an altar, but
it's
we build stuff around
narratives.
That's so true.
But when we know, when the Holy Spirit or the Lord has already told us, like, that is it. I think that's straight talk. And
We need
It's straight
more of
talk.
that.
And can I tell you the
yourself,
opposite
yeah.
of that? People then, we were in a very charismatic church. We were at the Ocean View Methodist Church, and then we were
Yeah.
also at another charismatic church. And people would come up to me and say, "Oh, he'll be healed in Jesus' name. Oh, he'll be healed in Jesus' name." And that was so offensive.
Yes.
And I could
Yeah.
feel it at the time. And now I can articulate what it is. It's denying the reality of where we are now.
That's right.
I love that.
Because he did lose his diagnosis. He wasn't healed. He wasn't broken with autism. People with autism are not broken. They're not bad. They're not defective. Their brain is just different.
That's
and
right.
it's uniquely made. And so God told me at the beginning, Keller is fearfully and wonderfully made. So just to say, oh, he's going to be healed. It was not meeting me where I was, which is what God does.
Yeah.
And hearing what I needed to hear.
Yeah.
That's the other thing is
Yeah.
we needed to do all those therapies and change our entire lives around what we thought we were called to do. We were then called to be Keller's caregivers and create a life
Yeah.
where he could thrive and be comfortable so that his brain could grow and change. And a lot of that's parenting all the time. We got
That's right.
we create a life where our kids can thrive, which you guys have obviously done. And so it was just more dramatic for us.
Yeah.
But I think that denial and not hearing it is it doesn't help. And so we've had people who've heard our story and just said, I'm going to claim the same thing. And I really need to say, I've said it before,
Yep.
this isn't something that you are healed from. God can do anything. He can change
Yes.
any part of a personality.
Yes.
But autism doesn't mean you're defective. What I was grieving was that
Or
I thought-
sickness.
It's
not
not a
sickness.
sickness.
Yes, I was gonna
it's
say
not
that.
something. It's not the influenza to be healed from.
sure.
What I was grieving though was, will my son ever fall in love? Will my son ever be able to go to church? Will my son have friends?
Yeah.
Will my son know he is loved by God and love others? That's what I was grieving. And I do think with severe autism, that can be hard. It's not impossible. It can be hard. And so that was my job, was how do I make sure my son can know he's loved, can have community, can share love with others? And that is possible with anyone, no matter the
100%,
diagnosis.
for sure.
The most severe autistic person can love and be loved.
I mean, someone without autism, we still teach and preach to them that you are loved.
Yes.
So, and then when I say normal, please just understand.
Yes,
I'm not-
neurotypical.
Yes.
It's 100% what we deem normal.
Yes,
Whatever
yes.
that
Status
might mean.
quo.
Yes.
Yeah. In mainstream school.
Yes.
But we have people that we know that is unloved.
All of us have someone.
That's
All of
true.
us have one person we could literally call today
Definitely.
who, because they're different, they feel like they don't fit. And so because that was what I thought first, oh no, my son's not going to fit. My son's not going to fit my calling. My son's not going to fit our calling. And my son won't experience what he's supposed to experience in life. So all us as people of God, we are the image bearers of God.
That's
so
right.
we need to go to those people who don't feel loved
100%.
and say, you're loved.
Yes.
I love you just as you are. And so someone with autism, for instance, if you want one way to do it, figure out what they love. So Keller loved dinosaurs. So everything,
Don't they all love
does he?
it?
Yeah.
Keller, everything was dinosaur. And people who connected with Keller did it with dinosaurs.
Okay.
You don't say, Keller, tell me about your school day. You bring a dinosaur and you connect over a dinosaur. You connect over. But adults who are on the autism spectrum, same thing. Figure out what they love, figure out what they care about, and connect with them there because they are struggling to know how to connect. That's not natural for them. So connect with them first,
Yeah.
and then they will be able to connect
we
with
need
you.
to have a conversation with what you like.
You gotta
Because it may
connect.
be something that I rejected, who knows? And I'm feeling like I'm so informed today.
It's true. I mean, we all do
Wow.
it, but that's the thing is
You
some.
just diagnosed me now.
No, someone with I don't know what you are, but someone who's neurodivergent, we do have very because I have ADHD, very intense likes and dislikes, dramatic. But it is a very loving thing to jump into what other people
I'm normal.
like.
I'm normal.
Yeah, you are fearfully and wonderfully made. But all of us have that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's
for
what
sure.
I'm thinking also, like, we shouldn't create a space like, okay, a space for them so they also have a space.
No.
We have to go against the status quo
Exactly.
that we are embracing.
They're
that
in.
they are not different. They
No.
are part of who God had created us to be.
We
to
bring the
just get
dinosaurs
information.
in. So churches now has
100%.
dinosaurs so that and that's what people did is they said so we were actually going to volunteer we'd go to our Methodist church, so we'd volunteer at another church. The kids church people we were friends with, they came to
Yeah.
us and said, Keller needs to come to church. You can't leave him when you come
Yeah.
through. So what do we need to do so that Keller feels comfortable at church? And they created an environment so Keller could come in. That's what we need to do.
Do we have to open it up a different Sunday school that's for them where they can just be themselves and have an educated teacher?
Educate the
teach
teachers,
them?
teach other kids. Other kids need to befriend these kids. And, that's what my daughter, what she learned is she sees someone who's neurodivergent. She always sees them and she befriends them first. And she
Okay.
helps them to feel comfortable, confident wherever they are. She still does it
Wow.
today
Wow.
because they're struggling to settle in their bodies wherever they're at. So I
Yeah.
can be your friend. What do you need? How can, she had a friend recently family who's a high schooler with autism at Redham Constantia, and he was having a party, and I said, we need to help him plan this party. Well, she kept saying, he doesn't know how to plan a party, so she kind of took over, and I said, you need to ask him, what will help him to feel like this party is a success for him?
Yes. Wow.
What does he need to experience in this party so he's happy? Because there's like 50 kids coming. It turned into this crazy thing. And so I said, but you need to talk to him. What does he need so that he feels happy about the party? Because kids are going to come and they're going to be crazy. And so she talked to him, help him figure out what he needed for that party to go well. And then he had a great party. It's so simple.
I need to also one more thing, Sarah. So when we have our kids, they have their naughty times. When did you know and discern when it was naughtiness and his discipline and having to just usher him being autistic? When did you know that?
Here's where I can speak about the strength of dads. So the nurturers, we will like burn down the house for anyone that's trying to hurt our kids.
Yes.
But sometimes nurturers can overemphasize the nurturing. And miss when the world has boundaries. That's why God is a God of justice. There are boundaries in the world. So if we have a kid who thinks they can just do whatever they want, whenever they want, because they have whatever diagnosis or don't, that's not helpful to the kid. So that's the other thing is we also realize Keller needs to learn that if he's going to go to school, he needs to learn there are rules, there are boundaries. He has to eat in certain things. He has to talk a certain way. My husband was great at that.
Wow.
And he learned Keller's weaknesses that were understandable. And he also said he can eat. He can learn to eat. So we would sit at that kitchen table and he would say, Keller's eating. Keller would gag, he would throw up, and we would all just sit at the table because my husband was like, he needs to learn and he can. So here's the thing. My husband was able to see he can do this. He just doesn't want to. It's uncomfortable. I get it. He doesn't want to. It wasn't necessarily naughtiness. Sometimes it is. But he would say he needs to do this because it's best for him.
Yeah, and I think
when
I see, and that's that I can commend my sister and my brother-in-law for. That she cares, she loves. She does everything. You can make a mess and she'll sort it out. But my brother-in-law, Marcel, he knows exactly, right, you are being...
Yes.
You must be having...
Yes.
Not
no, or just... And it is uncomfortable. Or he doesn't want to eat, Keller, like meat. I thought he's never going to eat meat. Yeah. And it wasn't comfortable to his nervous system to eat meat. But Casey said, no, he can do it. Yeah. And so he pushed and he pushed and he pushed. And so we worked together with both of our strengths. So dads have a strength that moms don't have. You need each other. And so we respected each other. And I saw that early on. Thank God for Casey. Thank God, thank God for both of us because you need both. Because an autistic person, if they're very severe, often it is hard to keep a job. It is hard to stay in school. And so we knew Keller was capable of doing those things, but he needed to be pushed. And so there does need to be discipline at times for the betterment of the child. Not for me. I don't care if Keller goes to school. I don't care. It's not.
I look after him. That's a mother.
I would. It doesn't matter to me, but he could, and he needed that for who God had made him to be. So then we needed to be strict, and we needed to push. And now he eats all the meat. Wow. Does he? Literally every meal, he still asks if I can put it on a wrap. I don't know. That's he still has a nervous system. That's weird. But he can eat anything because of my husband. So that like God brings the perfect parents and the perfect perspectives and the perfect siblings too.
Just do it.
I mean, even my daughter at times when he lost his diagnosis, she came to me crying, you are still favoring Keller. He can do the dishes. Yeah. And I was like,
she's right.
Come on.
I mean, the whole family has a voice and needs to have a voice in what all of us need. And so thank God for my family.
And I'm just thinking about Kylie having a sister keeper. Eli's got a sister keeper. And that is just so beautiful how God is He's just created that.
Oh, the sister.
So beautiful.
The sister.
Absolutely.
The sisters. Yeah. I mean, she is, she's flourished and she had to say no to certain things. Like there was a cost to it, to the family. Like we had to pull back on things, but also we made sure that she was flourishing, she had what she needed, but she is better because of her brother who had
100%.
autism. She's better.
100%. I love that.
We need that.
Yeah.
You're better because of Cameron.
We need support.
What's wrong with Cameron?
We need
Where do we begin?
I'm just joking.
We need support. We need community.
But we're better. The things, the weaknesses all of us have,
Yeah.
we are called to step into them. It's not a cost. We're better because of the empathy, because we learn what other people need. Like it makes us better in the kingdom of God.
100%.
Thank God for all of our differences, our weaknesses and our strengths.
That is Anguish to Awakening.
Come on.
Can you tell the viewers where they can obtain your book?
It is on Take-A-Lot. It is on Amazon all over the world. It's in my house. You can come visit me and I'll give you a copy. I mean, God, once it was finished and he went to grade R and was thriving, I said I have to write a book, not about our stories, but how do I teach other families like we're doing today.
Empower other people.
Empower other people, empower the communities, the churches, the friends
of God.
to step in. And that is a part of my mantle forever. It will be a part of what. So thank you for the honor of sharing about it, because it's part of what God has given me. And I'm so thankful that he interrupted and ruined the life I thought I wanted. Thank God.
Wow.
Thank God.
He
You know?
disrupted it completely.
Completely.
Wow.
Yeah.
And our stories is ultimately for God's glory, to equip the body of Christ, to equip the kingdom of God, because I was left equipped of how I can be a
Definitely.
better cousin,
Mm.
how we can be a
Better
better
auntie, you know?
a better auntie
Eli
and
is so
uncle.
blessed to have you all. He is, and God has put you perfectly in his life to love him and to champion him and to help him thrive for all God has for him.
Wow, that's amazing.
Just another one. So another one who loves Eli and tolerates him is my dad, because he has all the patience in the world.
There's just those special ones.
Yeah, and he also knows, he's able to allow him to be, but also knows when.
Yes.
No, stop. No, we don't break eggs anymore. We
Yeah.
We don't drink the whole
Right.
pot of tomato sauce.
Tomato
We don't.
Yeah.
We don't do
yeah,
that.
Yeah.
You can have a sip, but
Yeah.
that's
Not the whole bottle.
not the whole
Sounds
bottle.
about right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's just those angels that are equipped. And so learn from them. You know, those are the people that God brought that just delight. And so, okay, how can I be more like that?
Because he knows the plans he has for us.
Yeah.
Amen.
He's
It comes
so
with everything
good.
we need.
He's so good. He's so
Sure.
So
good.
thank you so
Thank
much
you so
once
much.
again.
Oh,
It was such a blessed
wow.
episode. Yeah, I think this is definitely gonna bless the viewers. It has blessed us.
For sure.
Honestly, it's
me.
blessed me. So thank you so much, Auntie
Thank
Sarah,
you.
for this wonderful episode, and
Yeah,
we will see you more
I think
on the
Definitely.
podcast.
Yes.
And this is the thing. And sometimes when you minister and when you preach especially when you're a guest somewhere, and there's a child running around, people always try. I'm going to be bold enough and say, like, leave him. Let
Yes.
him live. Just let him.
Yes.
I'm chilled if you chilled. So
Yes.
if he wants to run
That's
on
a
the
great
stage,
leadership thing. So
Yeah.
if you stand up and say, it's fine, let him be,
it's fine.
because we want him in.
Yes.
We don't
Yeah.
want him out.
No.
We want him in.
No.
Wow.
So you speak that.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
right.
Thank you so
Brilliant.
much.
If
Brilliant.
anyone wants to come, I don't want to come as far as featuring at Pasera a book, but wanting to feature in Cape Town, I'm a point of reference also.
Great.
I'm also
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
place
Yeah.
of distribution. So yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah. So if this episode has blessed you, please share it with somebody.
please do.
Yeah.
Honestly, we know it's gonna bless you
It's
because it's
definitely
blessed us.
100%.
Thank you once
Thank
again.
you.
so much for
Thanks,
being
guys.
here. We are so
Thank
blessed
you.
and honored.
Until next time.
Peace out.
Peace.